today we're doing Expounding Boundaries, which is another panel featuring our featured artists, Jezzel Wee, Ryan Rubio, and Goldie Poblador. So let's give them a hand kasi kinakabahan sila. So I will just introduce them in the order they will be presenting. So Jezzel Wee finds inspiration in the complexities of organic forms and relates them to the changing landscapes we interact with. She's a ceramic artist based in Quezon City, having finished a degree in Fine Arts major in painting from UP Diliman. She is the first Filipino to finish a 3-year apprenticeship from the Chugaro Kanayama Pottery in Japan in 2017. And her works have been exhibited in various art spaces and institutions across the Philippines, as well as in Australia, Japan, and Thailand. She's currently teaching at the UP College of Fine Arts and serves as the ceramic studio coordinator and is currently taking her master's degree at the UP School of Archaeology. Next, Ryan Rubio is a painter and sculptor currently based in Camarines Norte, Bicol region. He graduated from TUP in 2005 with a degree in fine arts, major in advertising. Known for his rock and stone sculptures that often resemble totem poles and expressive faces that alternate from the stoic to the surprised, Rubio's works are either silent witnesses or tight-lipped guardians to all that is going on around them. His understanding of his chosen material can be seen in how each piece retains its unique qualities. So he hardly carves a rock to change its appearance or made to look like something else. He works with the natural shape and color or of the stone or pebble and etches each figure's face based on the stone's form. And finally, Goldie Poblador uses glass blowing, performance, video, and installation, and scent when considering themes of feminism, the environment, and decolonization as it relates to the body. She received her BFA in Studio Arts from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and her MFA in Glass from the Rhode Island School of Design. She has exhibited her work and completed numerous residencies locally and abroad. Last year, her work Squalor was acquired for the permanent collection of the Corning Museum of Glass. So to start, we'll be showing the videos of some of these artists.
Nakaka-enchant kasi from a lump of clay, you can make a lot of things. So I guess yung fascination in manipulating the material, dun nag-draw yung interest to work with clay. Yung work for ArtFair. Casually ko lang nakwento na, gusto ko ng exhibition na gusto kong balikan yung idea before na punuin ng isang room ng wishing dolls. And people to experience the space na madaming wishes around us actually. Parang we carry it. Pero for this particular installation, gusto ko na yung mga tao yung magsasabi ng wish nila dun sa doll. And then, kasi dodrawingan ng mata, diba? Pwede yun, tas you can also shake it. Tapos, while people are doing that, at the same time, parang simultaneously, you'll hear the ringing sound of the ceramic. May silent wishes yung mga tao. For others or for the self. So yun yung gusto kong isama din yung experience na syempre ang clay very tactile and kapag in-exhibit siya, diba, usually you cannot touch it. Pero ito, it will invite you to feel the surface, see the texture, hear the sound. So, hindi lang siya limited to visual texture kasi pwede mo siya hawakan. And then you see the layers of, let's say, inlay porcelain, and then the celadon glaze, yung mga ganun na details. Of course, masaya na ma-experience yun nung viewers or audience. Actually, medyo parang concern nga sila. Sure ka? Pahawak mo. Kasi syempre, breakable siya, di ba? Syempre, di ba, minsan we can be reckless at times. Pero, pag may certain situation, pwedeng magiging careful and then aware ka dun sa yung nasa harap mo, sa paligid mo. So, parang gusto ko siyang i-simulate or i-share na, uy, it's between you and the object. Tapos, although parang muted yung sound, pero surrounded, ganun. Parang ganun. Parang siyang sublime.
Karaniwan kasi yung piyesa ko, yung mga gawa ko, artwork ko, hinuhugot ko ang pinanggagalingan niyan. Parang yung everyday life experience, doon talaga nagbabase. Dati kasi nag-umpisa talaga ako, painting talaga eh. Doon talaga, hindi ako nag-sculpture. Nung mga ilang taon, parang naghanap din ako, gusto ko kasi nag-explore. Ayoko yung nag-stick sa isang medium. So, nag-umpisa kasi yung sculpture ko, yung ganong pyesa. Yung may nag-a-attach na ako ng mga 3D, yung mga wire. Hanggang sa nung first one-man show ko sa CCP, ginawa ko siya na parang irregular form na mahaba. Hanggang sa naging 3D na siya, hanggang sa nung umpisa nag-ano lang ako, yan, yung Adobe yan, mga early works ko yan, Adobe yan. Nag-clay din, clay. Tapos nag-wood din ako, may sculpture din ako ng wood. Hanggang sa, yung wood, in-incorporate ko ng stone, hanggang sa nag-metal na ako, iron. Hanggang ngayon, yung sa ArtFair, stainless steel na. Una, form yung tinitignan ko. Hanggat maaari, tinitignan ko yung konti na lang yung tatabasin ko, yung ipoform ko. Kasi minsan, yung pag-sculpture kasi physical talaga yan eh. Mayroon kasi sa aming Pulandaga Beach eh. Kilala siyang beach sa amin. Di ba yung tabing dagat, wala naman yung may-ari yan eh. So, free kang nakakakuha, libre rin ako nakakakuha. Ang problema, nilalakad ko yan kasi hindi naman nakakapasok yung sasakyan, hindi naman pwede sa buwak. Tapos may dala ako niyang backpack. Pag yung mga ganyang kaliliit, pinupuno ko yung backpack. Yung kaya ko lang syempre buhat. Ipon lang ako ng ipon ng materyales. Pero minsan, sinasadya ko talaga. Pumupunta ako sa mga iba-ibang lugar, malalayong lugar, mga ilog. Tapos, kumukuha ako ng bato. So, matagal din. Physical talaga siya. Medyo talagang tatrabahuin na. Tsaka ang mahirap din, igalaw-galaw siya, move. Lalo na yung malalaki kasi mabigat. Gusto ko mula umpisa ako yung gumagawa. Ang disiplina ko, kapag pinagawa mo yung part na yan, baka may mamiss ka na matututunan sa ganung, di ba? Yun nga yung masarap na part eh, yung proseso. Doon ka maraming matututunan kasi, doon sa proseso. Naproproseso ka habang nag-art. Yun yung part na nagkakaroon ka na ng, bakit ako magmamadali? Ano lang, relax lang, di ba? Enjoyin mo habang gumagawa. Siyempre sa umpisa medyo mahirap siya talaga. Pero parang unti-unti, yun nga yung sabi, na parang ikaw yung magsusolve, di ba? Tapos darating yung panahon, masusolve mo siya. Kasi kahit sabihin mo na ilang taon na nag-art kasi, sa akin lang na opinion o disiplina, kahit ilang taon ka nang nag-art kasi, kahit ulit mo yung ginagawa, basta may mga matututunan ka pa rin. Sabi nga, ano daw yan eh, pag nag-art ka, walang katapusang pag-aaral yan eh. parang buhay siya talaga. Buhay siya. So, gampanan natin. Parang.
I thought it would be interesting to make something that was completely out of my comfort zone. I work at Brooklyn Glass, which is in Gowanus. The technique I specialize in is called glass flame working. And I first learned that actually in Manila through a scientific glass blower for my thesis back in 2009. The project was called Sea Anomaly. The first iteration of the project. I heard on the news that there was an oil spill in the Verde Island Passage. The BMB, Biodiversity Management Bureau of the Philippines. So I wrote to them, and they are the ones who gave me the list of essential and endangered species in that area. My work is quite small. That's like the nature of that technique, is that you can get really fine details, but what you make is quite small. So something about the size of the work also was inspiring, knowing that like visually, small things can have impact. As I did more research, I learned more about the archetype of the monstrous feminine. This archetype exists in all cultures, basically. In Greek culture, right, there's the archetype of Medusa. I think that it's this sort of tool that they use to like vilify women, this concept of the monstrous feminine. And so the rise of Medusa in my mind is this like image of her showing her strength through the resilience of these species. So I was interested in the dark side of it. The idea of the oil spill and nature being threatened was very close to, I think, what I was going through personally at the time. And then earlier this year, I thought that Sea Anomaly needed more. Like I imagined a version of it where, you know, there was scent involved, there could be scent and sound and a performance involved. The whole thing actually started with scent. It's that direct link to our limbic system. I am actually working with a perfumer named M. Doherty. So we've been working since March of this year to conceptualize scent to sound translation. And I think M's idea is to show the change of the Verde Island Passage through time. I tend to let go of my work once it's out there. I don't like to dictate what people see, but I'm hoping that somehow people get curious about their own Medusas and somehow see the wonder in that. At the same time, like the wonder in these creatures in the Verde Island Passage that we don't see. I'm hoping that people come and watch and enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, short background presentation about paano nag-start yung integration of different things in ceramics. Yung first photo is inside an anagama kiln. So, I trained in Japan for 3 years. So, malaki yung bias ko with wood-fired works. Kasi you can see the flow of the flame. So, ganyan yung itsura niya sa loob ng kiln. My sensei on the right photo, and me. And then the people from Tsugaru Kaneyama Pottery after I finished my 3-year apprenticeship. So it's like the farewell party. In Japan, we use traditional wood kilns. So these are noborigama or climbing kilns. And the firing is similar to bizen ware. So we put charcoal inside the kiln as we fire it. So yun. Yung photo doon yung loob ng anagama. And the cloud plate was the plate that made Kaneyama popular in Japan. Kasi yung influencer actress in Japan posted it in Instagram. So yun. I made 3,000 pieces. Crazy. So my training is actually production work because Tsugaru Kaneyama is a tableware company. Tapos, fast forward. So first appearance ng Wishing Dolls was when I got back home here in the Philippines. So I thought people had a lot of wishes and expectations for me. So if you notice the eyes of the dolls has their pupils drawn because I felt that they have wishes for me. After that, so practicing ceramics and then at the same time being a lecturer, I was fortunate actually to have a collaboration with Ma'am Dayang Iraula and Gerecho Iniel Cruz. So this one is in VOV. The works are in ceramics, but with sound. So, play natin. So Gerecho he made the electronics for the drum and the ocarina. So I was fascinated on how to utilize ceramics to create sound. So yan yung isa sa mga unang explorations. Okay. So all of the works there are fired in like tanka type of firing. So it's similar in putting charcoal in the kiln, but this one we put it in a box inside the kiln. So you'll see later. Again, I'm interested in nature and organic form. So papakita ko lang yung iba't ibang works. Yan, this one's in Pinto. So I made small netsuke or matcha containers. Tapos, this one, to be sure the senses deceive, I want people to interact with the work. So ito na yung start ng papahawak ng ceramics sa show. So I remember na, ayun, pakita natin. So the idea was, this is a jubako or yung stackable na container. So it's like a memory game. So you try to remember how to place the objects inside the container. So 2 tao dapat yun. And then you try to remember how it was placed. So it plays on our memory and how we recall things. So yan. So this was the time where I incorporate also crochet or fabric in my works. Yan. Okay. Tapos, this one, solo exhibition noong 2023. So I like to challenge also how to present ceramics. So ito ay stoneware clay that's being sinabit siya from the ceiling. And that was my first time to use a cantle wire to hang works. So medyo experiment plus risky. So okay, play natin yung video. These are kapok or cotton pods. So the seeds are actually bells. So you can interact with the space as well or ring the seeds. Okay. Tapos, after nun, we had a show in Orange. Tapos I wanted to experiment more on interactive works and works that produce sound with ceramics. Kasi if it's high-fired, or low-fired, iba yung tunog nila. So, for example, this one. So, the works are fired with rice straw, kaya sila may red marks. So, people can hear the difference of the ceramics, the tones. No? Tas hanging na naman. Yun, okay. Most of my works were wheel thrown for the exhibit. I used stoneware clay with local terracotta. So my studio is fairly small, so I work with small batches. Some of the big works, actually 9 pieces lang ata sila, they are pangalan yan, slip-casted. My studio is in Quezon City, and our kiln, my partner's kiln, is in Taytay Rizal. So si Marco, yan. So we had to transport actually the works from QC to Taytay. This one is for bisque firing. Yung nasa right side ay nasa bisque fired works na. So usually we fire 2 times. And then, okay, ito yung may mga red marks. So I learned that in Japan. It's called hidaski technique. So we wrap the works in rice straw. Since rice straw has silica, it reacts with the clay body when we fire it. And then below the rice straw, may box doon, di ba? So inside there, it has, wait lang. Okay. So this one is tanka type of firing. So it's like a box inside the kiln, and then we fill it with charcoal to create a reduction atmosphere. So mas reduced. Kaya yung kulay niya, sometimes it will turn metallic, black, purple, so different hues of the clay body. So it's nice. It's a bit unpredictable, but when you get the nice shades, like some of the works had those gold streaks, it's difficult to get actually if the box is too open or too closed. So this is Marco loading the kiln. And actually, when I glaze the works, I put a hole sa ilong. Kasi inside the dolls, I put ceramic balls or clay balls that is fired together with the work. So if the glaze goes inside, it will melt together and attach the ball, and it won't produce any sound. So yun. Kaya funny lang yung photo, kaya sinama ko siya. Ayun. Dahil I had to make a lot, it was a fun experiment to try different surface decorations, different glazes, different combinations of firing. So it was like a playground or like test tiles of dolls for me. Of course, in my studio, we have our senior dogs roaming around in and out my studio. And when I mix my clay also, they're there. So that's Tikoy and Mongo. So I had to include them because they are my companion actually when I work late. And the doll of Tikoy, because when we had our photo taken, he, what do you call it? He touched the clay, so it left a mark. So I thought, okay, I'll make it Tikoy. So that's the photo. Photo by Sir Jojo. Yeah, thank you.
Ako nga pala si Ryan Rubio, visual artist, taga Bicol, province ng Camarines Norte. Yung lugar na yan, karamihan doon sa nasa show, diyan ko kinuha. Kasi walking distance lang sa amin ng dagat eh. So parang sa south part, bayan ng Paracale, known as parang gold mining. So maraming mining sa amin, silica, yung iron ore, black sand, yung clay, may clay din. Halos lahat ng mineral, medyo mayaman yung bayan namin sa mineral. Kilala siya. Pero ang pinaka-primary, gold talaga. So, parang dyan ako lumaki sa bayan na yan. So, surround ako ng mga ganyang materials, ng mga ano. Tawag dyan sa amin yung magkakabod. Magkakabod, yun yung mga nagmimina. Pangunahing hanap buhay sa amin kasi, mina ng ginto. Yan, merong, yung bato na yan, part din yan noon sa may show ko, kinolek ko sa may, ano ba yan, parang Cam Norte pa rin siya, parang beach, Peebles Beach tawag dyan eh. Puro bato lang talaga siya, wala kang makikitang buhangin. Puro ganyan lang, tabi ng dagat. Tapos mga kaibigan ko kasi sila, parang nasanay na rin pumupunta sa amin eh. Parang te-text nilang nila ako, tatawagan, nandun na sa lugar namin. Parang sanay na yan eh. Sila Kuya Neil, sila Rabe. Tapos susunduin ko na lang. Sinama ko yung picture na yan kasi nakasama ko sila pag-collect ng bato. Ayan. Ayan yan. Ayun sila. Pasensya na kasi hindi ako gumawa ng slides na yan. Pinagawa ko yan. Si Mark Andy gumawa niyan eh. Yan, sa Batangas naman yan. Kasi hindi lang isang part yung bato na nalagay ko, hindi lang isang lugar. Kung pag napunta ako sa isang lugar, nagkokolik ako, iniipon-ipon ka lang. Kaya dun sa show, may mga bato dyan na galing Mindoro, Batangas, tas Kabikulan, kung saan man. Kumbaga, parang kasama na rin talaga siya sa... Yan sa amin yan, sa Paracale. Diyan kami madalas, mga kaibigan ko. Oo. Kumbaga, Pulandaga Beach, kilala yan sa lugar na yan eh. Yan yung lugar na yan. Kumbaga, yan yung jubir ko eh. Yan yung jubir ko. Alam mo yung jubir, yung parang bilihan ng materyales, ng mga pintura. Yan dyan. Libre lang kasi. Yan. Ay, sorry. Yan. Tsaka, yun nga din, isa rin sa inspiration ko, since na talagang lumaki ako sa probinsya, kumbaga, yan, mga bundok, mga, yan, gubat. Kaya may mga, kung napapansin nyo, may mga parang halaman, puno akong in-sculpt. Kasi dyan talaga ako lumaki, sa ganyang lugar. Tabi ng dagat, ilog, kumbaga, name it, talagang puro nature siya. Nature lover kasi ako eh. Yan. Sa ano yan? Mindoro yan. No. Yan naman yung proseso ko, process. Stainless steel. Bago ako nag-stainless steel, nag-metal muna rin ako. Kung may nakikita kayo yung parang mga hindi tapos na sculpture na parang mga plancha ng bakal na makakapal, ganyan muna yung ginagawa ko. Kaya lang ang problema, medyo mahirap i-maintain eh. Parang, medyo ano. So nag-isip din ako na gusto ko kasi gumawa ng pwedeng pang outdoor din na kahit i-ano mo sa ulan, sa ano, na pwedeng materials. Kasi medyo, yung proseso ko kasi parang, hanggang ngayon, ganun pa rin eh. Ganun yung disiplina ko eh. Yung parang experimental pa rin eh. Ayoko mag-stick sa isang medium. Na pag kung may idea ako na nagpipit dun sa may nakita akong materials, gagawin ko yan. Try ko yan. Kasi paano ko malalaman kung hindi ko naman susubukan, di ba? Kung okay siya. Kaya, hindi ko alam kung next year, iba na namang medium, di ba? Kaya, yan, ganyan. Kaya napunta ako sa stainless steel. Kasi gusto ko naman, pang outdoor siya, na okay naman. Tapos kinakat ko siya isa-isa talaga. Bawat piece by piece. Kaya medyo talaga matrabaho din. Tsaka talagang hard labor din siya talaga. Medyo talagang tatrabahuhin nga, kumbaga. Tapos pagkat mo yung isa-isa, syempre matalas yan, lilinisin mo pa yan isa-isa din bago i-compose. Yung disiplina ng pagbuo ko ng pyesa, ng sculpture, na-adapt ko sa painting kasi painting naman talaga ako nag-umpisa. Yung simultaneously din, kung maaari, hindi rin ako masyadong nag-studies. Kumbaga may idea ako, bubuo ako, bilog, o malaking kung irregular form man, o ganun. Nasa isip ko lang yan na Pero ang gusto ko, parang painting din yung proseso ko. Wini-welding ko siya isa-isa, rekta. Kumbaga rekta. Pag mali, di mali. Tatanggalin ko siya. Pag okay, di okay. Pag may kulang, di rekta siya hanggang makumpose siya ng buo. So wala talaga. Hanggat maaari, ganun. Tsaka hanggat maaari, yung disiplina ko na gusto ko, ako yung mismo mula zero hanggang ako yung gagawa, pati base lahat. Parang medyo matagal siya pero okay naman eh. Kinakat ko siya isa-isa. Pero may mga part dyan, yung malaki ko, di ba? Kung napapansin nyo, meron dyan na parang ilisin ng bangka. Kasi nagko-collect din ako, umiikot ako sa mga junk shop, kino-collect ko yan. Tapos minsan kinakausap ko yung nagpapaipon ako ng, kasi may yung isang malaki doon, yung ang title niya, The Fisherman's Prayer. So ang idea niya, nag-collect ako ng maraming ilisin ng bangka. Kung napapansin ninyo. Kaya iniikot ko yung buong mga junk shop sa amin, sa Camarines, na dyan sa Pariang, Camarines Norte nga, pinapaipon ko. Kasi parang yun yung idea ko eh, na patungkol sa fisherman. Kasi tabi nga kami ng dagat eh, may mga kaibigan din ako, mga mangingisda, kaklase ko nung high school. Ibig sabihin parang ang inspiration talaga dyan, everyday life din eh. Kumbaga, parang doon talaga siya hinuhugot. So, kaya lang hindi ko lang din nilagay lahat nung kasi masyado nang mabigat. So, ganun din yung proseso ko doon sa bato, parang painting din. Wala rin, hanggat maaari, walang study. Simultaneous din yan. Kaya kinakarb ko yan na kung ano lang yung nasa isip ko, kung anong kalabasan. Para mas natural din kasi. Tsaka minsan, namimili din ako ng isang bato na gusto ko na yung form. Hanggat maaari, hindi ko na siya babawasan o dadagdagan kasi perfect na yan eh. Yan na yung perfect na art in nature eh, di ba? So hanggat maaari, yun yung, kaya lang minsan hindi naiiwasan. Pero yun hanggat maaari, ganun yung proseso ko. Yun yung disiplina na parang, yan, ganyan yan. Power tools din, mga power tools na naman yung ginagamit ko eh. Yan yung studio, medyo maliit nga lang eh. Tapos minsan, kahit pag nasisipag, gawa lang ng gawa, iniipon ko lang ng iniipon, tinatambak ko lang siya ng tinitambak. O sa gilid, hanggang maipon ng maipon. Tapos pag may naisip ako, kinukumpose ko lang siya ng kinukumpose. Kaya ipon lang din ako ng ipon ng bato kahit kung saan lugar ako makarating. Yun na yung pinaka parang resulta. So yan palang malaki na yan na yan kasi may natanggal sa biyahe. Kaya napagalitan pa kami ng guard kasi nag-welding eh. Ayan yan, iniretouch ko lang siya. Oo. Kasi yung transpo, medyo pangit yung daan sa amin sa parting Quezon, medyo siguro na sakyan eh. Kaya niretouch ko lang siya. Ayun yan, diyan kami napagalitan na party. Masusunog daw yung building. Ayan, siya installation kami rin. Ayan na yan. Yung mga iba, hindi siya buo talagang isang bloke ng kagaya nung nandito sa may left side. Dalawang parte siya ng bato. Kasi masyadong mabigat eh. Diyan ako medyo nahihirapan. Kasi yung may pinagkukuhanan ako ng bato na malapit lang sa amin beach na libre nga lang siya. Kaya nga yun yung juber ko. Ang problema, kagaya niya, medyo malaki yan. Sa totoo, makapal yan eh. Makapal siya na bato. Kaya hanggat maaari sana, pumipili ako ng mas manipis para kaunti na lang din yung tatabasin. Kaya lang minsan, nagkakaubusan din eh. O kaya lalo pag bumabagyo. Pag bumabagyo kasi yung tabing dagat, nahuhukay siya, natatabunan ng mga buhangin. So matagal bago na naman ulit lumabas yung mga bato. So medyo, minsan hahanap na naman ako ng ibang karatig na bayan sa amin kasi tabi kami ng dagat, halos lahat ng bayan may mga dagat din. Ganun. So minsan, pag nahihirapan ako kasi kababagyo, kahit yung makakapal na bato, kinukuha ko na. Minsan nakakailang balik ako niya na pag yung naka-backpack nga lang kasi buhangin naman yung dadaanan mo, malayo eh. So, ilalagay ko yan sa backpack ko, tapos bubuhatin yan manuman na mabigat. Minsan, pag 4 na balik lang kasi mapagod. Uwi na ako niyan, tambak ko lang yan. Tapos, kinabukasan, balik na naman ako. Pag okay na, yun, sisipagan na naman, gagawa na naman. Interest ko din yung form. Minsan gusto ko mas komportable ako, form na lang din eh. Kaya hindi na masyadong detalyado eh. Parang kagaya niyan, parang mas nasasatisfy ako sa parang form na lang. Kaya may mga part dyan na halos hindi ko na siya binabawasan. Kasi nga perfect na siya eh. Kumbaga, i-assemble mo na lang. So parang ikipag-collaborate din ako sa mismong nature na nga. Yan, studies naman yan. Kasi painting naman talaga ako una eh. Painting talaga ako nag-start hanggang sa gusto ko kasi nag-explore eh. Ayoko yung parang lang na kung yun na yan, ayoko. Hanggat maaari kung ano pa yung mahuhukay. Ayan. Salamat pala sa mga kaibigan ko kasi tinulungan nila ako pag-install eh. Ang bigat niyan, sobra, grabe. Oo, pucha. Thank you. Ito pala yung panapos. So, kaibigan ko yan, si Neil Pasilan.
Okay, next we have Goldie.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Goldie Poblador. I grew up here. I work in the context of glass as it's exhibited in installation. This is a piece I did at the Singapore Art Museum called May Puno sa Dibdib ng Kamatayan, where I translated music into scent. And so viewers were allowed to listen to the music that I translated and smell it at the same time. I primarily focus on a technique called glass flame working. So this is a technique that was popularized in the 19th century by the Blashkas. They made the Harvard glass flowers. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. I also do a lot of performance, video works, and I like to mix them in the context of a multi-sensory environment. But first I want to talk about my inheritance, and I'll start with a quote by Trinity Minha. Otherness becomes empowering critical difference when it is not given, but recreated. So I grew up here, and every day on the way to school, I'd go through this traffic situation. I live in New York now, so I thought it was funny that there's a jeepney that says New York in this picture. And so there's a lot of that going on in my brain, but also there's the other side of it. And the Philippines is the most biodiverse region in terms of shallow sea life, particularly the Verde Island Passage. And so this whole journey, though, began in 2009. That was when I was an undergraduate studying painting in the University of the Philippines. And that same year, they built this mall next to where I grew up in Marikina. And they dredged the river in order to build the mall on top of it. And during that same year, a huge typhoon hit the area called Typhoon Ondoy. So it was a lot of this kind of scenery that we saw, people carrying their belongings, avoiding the flood. And this is a picture I took the day after. And so I found myself very affected by witnessing this. And I wanted to work with scent, since scent is our sense that is most associated to the part in our brain that retains memory and emotion. And so as I started to think about it, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if I collected my memories of an area, since I was sad that things that were there were now lost. And so I experimented with glycerin and water. I took basic perfumery and I started to collect a lot of the flora in my home. This is from this year. This is the Gowanus Canal in New York. I not only collect nice smells, but I also collect quite horrible smells. Can this play? So basically, in 2009, I started to collect river water from Pasig, Ilog, Marikina, and my concept was to make this idea of an ironic perfume bar as a criticism of what was happening during that time, like the dredging of the mall, the typhoon, and how I felt about it. And glass and perfumery are a symbol of luxury. They're a Western material. Glass is a material of the aristocracy. The best glass blowers in the world live in Murano, in Venice. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if I recreated this concept that you can see in a mall, but when you walk in, the scents are actually from these regions that people tend to ignore. And so how would I do that? Oh my, right? And so it started with scent, and then I realized I should probably make my own perfume bottles. And I remember walking by this scientific glass blowing store next to the Eco Jeep stop in UP. And I went in and I asked if they could teach me. And that is Sir Aniceto de Castro. He passed away already, but he was the very first person who taught me this technique. And I would sit with him there 3 days a week, and he would teach me the technique. And that was my first experience with glass. This is how it turned out. This is collected memories and ephemeral representations. That's the perfume bar. Squalor for Men, Le de Pasig, which had the river water in it. This is the piece that was acquired last year by Corning. I recreated both Squalor for Men and this was Squalor for Women, except I installed it with water from the Gowanus Canal. This is how we do it. How do you play the video? Can you just... Oh. Well, you get the point, right? You drop a jar down and collect the water. And then it gets installed like this. Luckily, after I showed that at UP, I got commissioned to recreate the perfume bar, but to tell the story of the entire, like the history of the Philippines. And so this piece is called Ang Halimuyak ng Mai. Mai is the pre-colonial name of the Philippines, and it's actually a word for a lotus flower that used to grow in Pasig River. So I thought it was interesting to like use that visual of this lotus flower in a river that is actually now quite dirty. And so I made 30 cents. You know, the bad ones were, you know, they were the ones in the vitrines. So I had like scents like sariwang manga, kanin, but also scents like gobierno, which smelled like rotten eggs, things like that. Wasted youth, that smelled like sampaguita. There you have squalor in the background. We've got coffee beans over there for people since there were too many smells in the area. And yeah, I've been working with glass and scent and everything else ever since. When there is no separation between nature and self, the natural world is respected and even revered. So a lot of my work kind of talks about that connection to nature, and also like what I've been working on recently, like with scent and things like that, is this concept of biopiracy, which is an issue in perfumery, which is the means by which corporations from the industrialized nations claim ownership of, free ride on, or otherwise take unfair advantage of the genetic resources and traditional knowledge and technologies of developing countries. I think this was back in 2010, I forget, but I went with Sir Chits Ramirez and a few other artists to do an immersion in Puerto Galera, and we studied the local plants of the people in that area, the indigenous tribes, and they told us about that issue and sort of their concerns relating to that. And you know, a lot of this was like eye-opening to me, and it really like encouraged me to study more about like different like ecology and different kinds of plants, and relating that to like how I'm from here, right? I live far away, but this experience like still resonates with me. And what was nice about that immersion was that these children, they didn't really have toys, right? They just would use nature. They use plants, you know, as an umbrella or like as their toys. And it was just a really nice experience. And I took it with me. And this is from my thesis in 2015. I called it Venus Freed. And this is a piece about Chanel No. 5 and the pirating of the, well, not pirating, but the patenting of the ilang-ilang flower as an ingredient by the perfume industry. Ilang-ilang is a Filipino flower. And so what happened in the 1920s is that they took that seed of the ilang-ilang, they patented it, and they took it to make a perfume without giving back to the people that they took that knowledge from. So what I wanted to do was translate a perfumer's lab in some way and build an altar that took people back from Chanel No. 5 back into like the myth of the ilang-ilang. And so I used live flowers, and I performed in the space when I would disperse the pure scent of the ilang-ilang. And so visitors were invited to smell the perfume Chanel No. 5 on the right, and on the left they were invited to smell the pure form of the ilang-ilang flower. You know, I would perform as, you know, all the things. I'm performing tonight, so I hope you can come at 7 p.m. And so this project that I have now at ArtFair Philippines, in 2023, I read that there was an oil spill in this region of the Coral Triangle, and it contains 76% of the coral species in the world. So it's one of the most biodiverse regions in the world, and it affects everyone when this region is affected. And so I started to ask, and I reached out to someone from the Biodiversity Management Bureau of the Philippines, Joaquin Silvestre, thank you. And we worked together to come up with a list of species of essential and endangered species in the Verde Island Passage. So the giant clam, I tried to sculpt that, but it was too big. And I'll work on that maybe in the future. We've got common varieties, Acropora, which you'll see at Tower 2. Euphilia ancora, the mushroom coral, I don't think I was able to get to that. But a few of these on the list, I was able to sculpt. What's so interesting about the Verde Island Passage is that, like, there are species of sea slugs that have evolved in a very unique way because of the resilience of these species, because of what's happening in that region. So Dr. Terry Gosliner is actually one of the specialists, one of the marine biologists who's been studying life in the Verde Island Passage. And this is a slide from his talk. And what's interesting is that all the species on the right, they look similar and they're evolving in different colors. However, I think they're different, like genus or something, and the genus are on the right. And so this is a result actually of them finding a way to evolve despite the oil spill. And this encourages biodiversity in this region. And so I thought that that was really fascinating. And I thought that, I wanted to sculpt them. And so this is some work. This is the pearl bubble coral that I have in the current exhibition. The pearl bubble coral is an endangered species. It starts as a bubble, and at night it extends its tentacles to feed. But what I like to do in my work is that I mix the sculptures with body parts of the female body. And that's sort of how I talk about the concept of, the monstrous feminine. It's how I inject myself into the work, right? Because as you remember in the previous slide, there is no separation between nature and the self. And as long as we keep thinking that it doesn't relate to us, then that's bad, right? Then the world, gets dirty, air quality goes down, and what are we gonna do without good air quality on Earth, right? And so luckily, in 2023, I got into a residency at the Corning Museum of Glass, and I was able to study the marine invertebrates that were made by the Blaskas in the 19th century. And these are the Blaskas. They're so beautiful. And they are the main inspiration for my work. The Blaskas are the most famous glass flame workers in the world. To this day, nobody knows how they made these sculptures. They are so delicate and small. They're made using the same technique that I use, but the glass that I use now is stronger because it's Pyrex. Pyrex is a recent invention, and in the 19th century, they used soft glass, so Venetian soft glass. The Blaskas are from Germany, though, and they come from generations and generations of glass blowers. And so at my residency, I worked with the head conservator, Astrid, and she took me into storage and showed me all of the Blaschka marine invertebrates, because they only have like 8 on display at Corning, but they actually are the caretakers of the entire marine invertebrate collection. The marine invertebrate collection belongs to Cornell, and the Blaschkas made these marine invertebrates before they made the Harvard glass flowers. The Harvard glass flowers are the most famous pieces of the Blaschkas. And yeah, I wanted to include this slide because I wanted to talk about how I relate that to sort of this idea of Medusa, right? And so this is a poster from 1908. It's a poster that I think describes how people use the monstrous feminine to, to make sure that women don't win the vote, right? Oh, she's crazy, she's emotional, she's too much of everything. And so they paint her in this way so that they don't see her as someone strong, as a leader, right? And Medusa, I think, is a character who's been misunderstood in that way. Medusas are actually a word for baby jellyfish. So that's how it started. I was at Corning, I was looking through these things, and I saw the word Medusa. And it was a description for a jellyfish, a young jellyfish. And so I started thinking wouldn't it be interesting if I made my own version of these marine invertebrates, but I injected who Medusa actually was into the work, And that's what I did for this show, The Rise of Medusa. Sorry. And I hope that you come. There's a scent to sound translation that we've been working on, me and my collaborators, Erwin Romulo, Arvin Nogueras, Ben Richter, and M. Doherty. And so the sound piece that's in the installation is based on the shape of those sculptures, because those sculptures actually play tones, which I'll be triggering tonight, if you can come tonight at 7 p.m. The whistle tones produce certain frequencies, and the whistle tones then are also based on the scent that is installed in the work. And so the music that you'll hear, the sound that you'll hear, is based on the molecular weight of the scent. And so M. Doherty, the perfumer, made 3 scents for this piece. The scent of oil slick, just like a gasoline-like scent. The scent of dead coral, and the hopeful scent of verde, which is a fictional muguet, which means it's a fictional floral scent, much like a lily of the valley, except it's fictional, it doesn't exist. And the Verde Island passage is actually a hope spot. So I thought it would be interesting to make something like a fictional flower in the future that doesn't exist. That's nice. And there are notes of green mango, elemi, ilang-ilang, really like these local ingredients that are found in the Philippines, but also with a touch of salt. So the salty note in Verde is my favorite note in that sense. Here are the details. I hope you can come tonight, Tower 2, at my installation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so something that stood out to me with the 3 of you was parang it was a lot of tension. Particularly yung how physically laborious yung process for each one. But also, in a sense, it invites you to, in a sense, be meditative, to be more introspective. So, I guess, how do you balance that, like the laborious process, with, I guess, the emotional or yung mental state in coming up with your works? Maybe we can start with Jezzel.
Since ceramic is very process-based, so I have, let's say, times that I don't want to go to the studio. So parang in my head, I'll go through the process of making. Tapos, later on, okay, I think I need to go and work. So yung first step or first clay on the wheel, that's the hardest thing to start. So after that, okay, then I'll catch my rhythm. And then, okay, I'll notice, I think I'm putting too much pressure, ganon. So, mas nagiging self-aware. So, parang siyang, ano ba? I need to catch myself na I'm being impatient or anything. Kasi if not, mawawala yung balance in making or yung meditative state niya. So parang may chaos muna, tas magiging calm. So parang ganun.
Ikaw, Ryan.
Ako naman, yung process ko medyo matagal tsaka mahirap. Sa totoo talaga, tinatamad din ako. Yung mga tinatamad talaga ako kasi ang tagal gawin eh. Pero kasi ako, parang minsan pagka talaga sinisipagan, gawa lang ako ng gawa, tinatambak ko lang siya. Iniipon ko lang yan ng iniipon. Ipon lang ng ipon. Kahit walang show, kahit ipon lang siya ng ipon. Pero ito, nung mga panahon na itong ArtFair, sabi ko, puchik, ang lapit na. Yun, kahit tinatamad, syempre, mapepersa ka na gumawa. Pero ang masarap doon, kaya nga ganun yung title ko yung The Pain Passes, Beauty Remains. Kasi the moment na nahihirapan ka, doon lumalabas talaga yung creativity. So, kapag komportable ka, medyo para sa akin mahina rin Parang na-experience ko yan. Pag komportable ka, medyo hindi ganun ka-expressive o hindi masyadong na yung creativity mong tao, hindi masyado siyang lumalabas talaga. So the moment na parang sobra kang nahihirapan, the moment naman na parang mas marami kang idea yung pumapasok. So kaya yun yung pinaka-idea ng show.
Ikaw, Golds.
Tinatamad din ako. It means I also feel lazy in the studio sometimes. I'm sorry, my husband's here. He doesn't understand. You just force yourself. You force yourself to go to the studio, right? Because like it depends on access. If I don't sometimes I get a grant, sometimes I get a residency, and sometimes I have 24/7 access to glass, and sometimes I don't, right? And so when I have access, I work Monday to Sunday, 10 to 10. I will use it all up. And if I don't have that access, then I can go maybe 3 or 4 days a week, depending on how well I do that month, right? And so, you think about all those things before you go into the studio, and then finally, when I get there, I put my music on, and there it feels good. It feels good to blow glass. Sometimes it's not good. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I'm thirsty. And sometimes, it's hard. You're blowing glass, you're sweating, you're moving. But at the end of the day, I enjoy it, I think. And there are moments when I really do feel like happy when I'm blowing glass. And, it's kinesthetic, right? I listen to the music, I make something, I have a reference, and it's repetitive. And so these corals, right, like sculpting them, in the process of making them, then I start to see a hand come out. And then I start to see a female form coming out. And then the sculpture comes out, and I don't know how it'll end up. I know what these species look like, but part of the process is imagining it and then forming it as I go. So you complain a lot sometimes, and sometimes I take the train and oh no, I don't want to go. But then sometimes when I'm there, then I'm like, okay, this is good.
So, tao din kayo, basically.
Yeah.
So, related to that, di ba, very organic yung process. How do you know when it's time to stop? Na parang, okay na yung work na to. Maliban sa deadline, kasi sure ako deadline din was a factor.
I think for me, when to stop, like decorating or working?
Working.
Okay.
Work.
If working, if I'm being, irritable. Tapos the shapes I'm not happy anymore. So that's the time to stop. Parang my body is telling me, hey, you need to rest or you need to sleep and you need fresher eyes tomorrow. And see, maybe that's okay. Kasi I have this tendency na when I make and see them together, this is ugly. So I'll recycle my clay immediately. As in, tanggal agad. Need or put it in the bucket. Tapos I start again with nothing. So tomorrow, the next day, all of my effort nasayang. Tapos when I talk to my partner, Marco, I'll show him the photo. Sige, okay naman yung work ka. So yun nga, tired lang kapag working. But when it comes to, let's say, decorating or putting details, parang I look at how the contrast of the material, let's say porcelain and stoneware, and imagine their contrast. If I put too much porcelain, mawawash out yung clay. So I have to imagine that. And then, pag sobra na, so I'll stop altering the form. So, yun.
Ikaw, Ryan, same or...
Ako naman, may parang mahirap ipaliwanag eh. Parang may satisfaction ako na paggawa ng pyesa. Kahit buo na siya, parang pag may nakikita ako na kulang, pinipilit ko yan i-solve. Lalo na, kaya kung mapapansin nyo, may mga pyesa ako na form lang siya. Kasi pag nakita ko na yung sa sarili ko na parang satisfied na ako doon, okay to, maganda to. Parang nagbabind kami na okay, sige, okay na ako. Parang ganon. Okay na. Pero meron mga pyesa ako na medyo komplikado. Pero ayaw ko siya eh. Parang pangit talaga eh. Hindi ko yan sasama. Pangit. Kumbaga hindi siya kompleto para sa akin. May kulang eh. Siguro para sa akin, parang hindi siya panahon doon. Hindi pa panahon siya doon. So, babalikan ko yan, pero kung hindi yan masama sa show, okay lang yan. Kasi may panahon dyan, sabi ko nga, may panahon para sa lahat ng bagay. May panahon para sa lahat ng bagay. Yun lang.
I think, like for me, ako, inuulit ko minsan yung sculpture kung kaya. Right? Depende din. I think that I know when to stop a sculpture when it's balanced somehow. It's kind of hard to figure out like how it stands. I make several versions of the species. I mean, I've been making this work for the past 2 years. So, and you saw I only have like 10 species on that list. So like making them in this format, making them hollow, like trying out different versions of them and seeing which ones work, right? I mean, I definitely didn't bring everything with me. So yeah, like figuring out what works and just going for it, right? Like.
Okay, thank you. Maybe now we can open the floor for questions from the audience.
Hi po. Earlier you mentioned something about like yung process ng work nyo and like parang may emotional impact. But what I saw that binds the three of you is that there's something, it's not necessarily dark, but it represents a part of you that once you start creating something, lumalabas siya. And then kapag lumalabas yun, parang ako kasi when I'm more into movement and less in the visuals and music, so when I start moving, I'm like, wow, I remember something, and lumalabas yung mga trauma, memories, and stuff like that. And that's when I'm like, okay, I'll stop moving, I'll stop voguing, I'll stop dancing. So I was just like interested because yung works yung tatlo or like the process, while it's also laborious, it also seems to like spark so many memories and spark so many trauma. And how do you deal with that? Especially when you, parang may gusto din kayong sabihin sa labas, but at the same time, may sinasabi din yung kalikasan, yung nature, yung diwa nyo, yung kaluluwa. So how do you deal with it if ever nyo siya nakikita? Kasi when I was watching and listening, it was so powerful and I was moved. So I was like wondering, how then do you personally deal with it? If it's fine if you can share with it, because I don't know, it's just like interesting and it can also help other people deal with that when they start the creative process.
Ako kasi pag gumagawa nag-umpisa na tawag dyan, gumawa, sa akin parang meron akong disiplina na sinusunod. Una, parang talaga eh. So para maging yung trabaho is parang totoo, parang sabi ko nga, the best way to know the truth, to know yourself. Kailangan kilalanin mo muna yung sarili mo. Kasi mahirap yung magki-create ka ng magki-create, pero parang hindi buo yung kung ano ba talaga yung gusto mo. Kaya kung may kasi ako na-experience ko yan eh. Kung kunyari, titingin ako sa isang pyesa, sa isang painting, mangungusap siya. Sa akin nga, ang ko, kahit hindi mo kailangan kausapin yung artist eh. Kasi may kanya-kanyang perception sa pagtingin ng painting eh. So kung itong bagay na to, ganito yung nararamdaman mo, nakikita mo kasi yun yung experience na pumapasok sa'yo. Sa ibang tao, iba naman yan. Sa artist, iba din yan. So, kung tutusin, pag tumingin ka ng trabaho sa akin sarili ko lang disiplina. Sa experience ko lang. Kahit hindi mo kausapin yung artist, kung ano yung nakikita mo, mas the best nga yun eh. Kung mapapansin ninyo, kasi iba-iba yung ibig sabihin. Iba-iba yung nararamdaman doon sa bawat. So, ibig sabihin, may nangungusap, kumbaga, may impact sa bawat isa. O, kasi iba rin talaga yan sa artist eh. Kasi madali na sabihin naman ng artist na, ito ya, ganyan, ibig sabihin, ganyan, ibig sabihin. Madali yan eh. Kaya nga, ang pinaka-the best dyan, dapat yung nag-create niyan, yung artist, kilala niya yung sarili niya. Kasi madali dyan maggawa ka ng palalimin mo, o kung ano man, dito yan, hinuhugot, dito yan. Madali naman yan eh. Pero kung malalaman naman yan kung talagang totoo yung trabaho parang ganun.
Jezzel, Goldie, do you guys want to add?
Well, yeah, for me, I just push through it. When my trauma comes out, I just let it out. I don't hold it back. And I let it out. Like you said, you vogue. Push, like you're feeling bad, vogue, go, right? For me, it's like, okay, I'm feeling bad. I'll go into the studio and let it out, right? Artists make work about who they are and what they feel, and you get it out, you express it, right? And whatever that is, whether it's like sadness or happiness or whatever that is, or sadness over what's happening in the environment, you get it out. What else is it for, right? It's catharsis in some way, at least for me.
I guess medyo similar with Goldie. Kasi, ano ba, I worked in a production company, diba? Tapos I made multiple. So, for a time, ang dami kong, let's say, trauma and hardships, physical hardships with that. Pero at the same time, naisip ko, hey, may advantage pa din yun. So, kailangan tanggapin din, although traumatic siya, pero it can turn into something else. So, hindi ka magdudwell dun sa trauma. Yun nga, you push your way through it. So, yun.
We have another question.
Yes. Hello, my name is Haida. I feel as though the common theme among the three of you is taking the mundane, everyday things, di masyadong napapansin na bagay, and turning it into something innovative. What are the challenges you face translating these materials, these unconventional things, into art?
Can you say that again, please?
What are the challenges you face translating these materials, these unconventional things, into art?
Well, for me, with glass, it's hard. It's expensive, right? It's challenging. It's definitely challenging from the get-go, right? Like, I had to leave the country to learn the material, to pursue it, to learn more, right? And the material itself is expensive for me. And so when I get certain colors, when I get a sponsorship or something, then okay, then your best self comes out and I can do whatever it is I want. But access is definitely like the most challenging part about the material. And I mean, it takes 50 years to be considered a maestro in glass, at least in Venice, right? And I am not there yet, but the challenge is also like disciplining yourself to stick to a material that is also hard to work with. You really have to have love for it. Otherwise, who else would do it? And glass blowers are rare now, right? Well, now we have blown away and all that, but like access to it relatively is still quite hard. So, yeah, that's probably my most challenging aspect to the work.
Yung sa akin naman, ngayon, clay is fairly accessible compared before. So, I think yun the mundane, since we use ceramics every day. So, parang yung challenge for me is to present it in a different light. Not your usual tableware ceramics, but it's something that can hold your memory or experience or maybe sound. So yun, parang yun yung challenge na sa atin kasi 'di ba yung ceramics na sa escaparate or cabinet most of the time. And we fear to hold it and use it. But yung challenge is to encourage people to experience and touch it. So, yeah, yun.
Sa akin, obvious, mabigat talaga siya mabigat, talagang mabigat. Yun ang medyo talagang challenging sa akin. Lalo pagkuha pa ng materyales lang, mula pagkuha mabigat siya kasi binubuhat ko talaga siya. Kasi libre naman Kaya mabigat yung lalo na yung paggagawa, pag-iikot, lalo yung malaki, kung napansin niyo sa baba yung malaki, nasa almost 400 kilos siya, hindi pa kasama yung base. So, yung pagtayo, kaya mayroon akong video na kung napansin niyo na nakahiga siya, umpisa, Pero habang natatapos kasi siya, kailangan itayo para makita ko ma-view So challenging dyan, isa pa sa akin, maghahanap ako ng tao na parang, pare, patulong naman, buhatin natin, ilagay muna, natin, ipatong natin dun sa pedestal para makita ko, masimulan ko na yung pinakakabuuan. Yun lang naman Yung pag-create naman, minsan tinatamad talaga, pero pag nandun ka naman na, dire-diretso na naman yan Lalo na pag nakikita mo na yung gusto mong palabasin, yun na yun
I would like to ask about clay. I heard that today there are quite difficulty to find clay, organic clay here in the Philippines. A lot of has been imported. Is it so?
Yeah, it's true because we have some clay sources have already depleted. For example, in Iloilo, we have a black manito clay. So before it was used in the ceramic studio in UP, but unfortunately they overmined the resource. And I think as of now, there are no updated clay research here in the Philippines. The last publication that I know of was during the 70s.
How many kind of clay there are? Because like in Japan, I exhibit the work of Shoko Mafune and other Japanese artists, and they are much lighter in substance, not so heavy. So, how many like you're taking ceramic for plates and coin? How many kind of ceramic are here?
Here in the Philippines, we are most abundant in terracotta, but we do have sources for silica, feldspar, and ball clay. So these composed of stoneware clay. Unfortunately, we don't have kaolin, which is white and light as a material. That's why most of the pieces tend to be a bit on the heavier side and the darker side because of the sources. It's rich in iron.
With Pinatubo exploding, isn't it there are there were artists in ceramic who will use the Pinatubo ashes for ceramic?
Actually, during the 2020 Taal eruption, most of my potter friends collected ash from that eruption, and we turned that into glaze. We don't include it in the clay because the firing temperature can lower. So it is usually used as glaze.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Mitch. And this question is directed towards Jezzel and Goldie. Pero pwede ka rin kay Ryan. I noticed that the techniques na that you use are centuries old, especially for the ceramic. So I do wonder if there are limits to the technique that you've encountered that kind of challenged you. Parang you want to do something, pero eto lang talaga siya. No? And I wonder how you surmounted that, if any, no? Kung may na-encounter kayong ganun. Thanks.
Yung ceramics, ba, centuries, thousands of years na siya. Form-wise, ang dami na rin nagawa. Technique-wise, of course, we start with the basic and innovate. It's a matter of putting all the techniques that you know to execute your concept. Parang dun yung pwede mong idagdag sa long history ng ceramics. And at the same time, I think it's important to acknowledge that matagal na siyang art. Kasi, of course, minsan parang meron tayong eureka idea na, ako lang yung nakaisip nito. Pero when you check, wow, they've done this since 100,000 or 100 years ago, ganon. So, if you know that and you acknowledge that, then other ideas will form. And it will be different than before. So, yun.
I think I agree with that. Yeah, it's the same for glass. Glass started in the Mesopotamian era, right? And how did they think about that? Melting silica, sand, seaweed, like crushed like ashes of seaweed in order to like form glass, and then they figured out how to blow it. but they've been doing it since the Mesopotamian era. There's evidence of glass beads, glass objects from, like centuries worth of history. So yeah, when you do think about that, then you think, when you have an idea, then somehow like there is a way, like you'll figure out how to do it. Like when you figure out the science behind the kilns, right? It depends on the kiln firing. Like the Turbinaria piece I made that piece maybe 5 times. And the first 2 times I made them, crack, crack, crack. And I was like so frustrated. And I was like, how do I do this? And those pieces that I have on display, like I didn't know, I striped the color onto the hollow form, clear hollow form. And I didn't know how to do it at first without cracking it, right? And in the studio, I would just do it and do it and do it until I figured out how to treat the flame. What kind of flame does this piece want during this period of production? And as I did that, I adjusted the flame, I adjusted my process until I was able to do it, right? So you do your 10,000 hours, eventually you figure it out materially, right?
Sa bato ganun din, sa stones. Kasi na-try ko na rin yung ibig sabihin, yung traditional na ganun, yung pokpok. Kaya lang, medyo matagal kasi talaga yun. Ibig sabihin, na-experience ko rin yun yung traditional. Medyo matagal. Since na-available naman yung mga power tools, so bakit hindi natin gamitin? So, mas mabilis yung trabaho na medyo delikado nga lang din. Kasi nga medyo machine na siya eh. Pero mas mapapadali yung trabaho, kung ano yung mas mabilis mo gawin, kung ano yung idea mo, maiisip mo, mas madali kesa magagawa mo nga sa traditional pero mabagal. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na bakit hindi natin i-embrace yung traditional na-experience ko rin kasi yun eh. Pero hindi naman kasi sa akin, hindi ako nakapokus din eh. Ang inaano ko, kumbaga parang yung creative eh. Gusto ko yung idea ko ma-process ko ng mas mabilis na mas hindi physical. Kasi masakit sa likod talaga eh. Masakit sa likod. Pero na-try ko, may mga pyesa ako na traditional yung technique na ginamit ko, yung mano-manong palo.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
Hello, good afternoon. Ryan, Goldie, and Jezzel. I'm Joey Gobcobo. I'm visual artist and printmaker. Mostly my works is at Villana Gallery. Nag-promote pa, Booth 41.
Go lang.
Promote. Okay, my questions is particularly to Ryan. No, only one question but I divided into 3 parts. Okay, Ray, maganda ka na, ha? Okay.
Nung
Okay.
kapadyo
Okay, in other words, why TUP, no? Why TUP? Bakit dyan? Tapos, I saw that TUP has alternative materials instead of using oil on canvas or something. Mostly, ang tawag dito, I think that some of the artists that are studied at TUP, like Andy Garcia, Dex Fernandez, Eugene Arque, Mac Valdesco, using different materials or what they call alternative materials. No? So, isa yon sa part 10 na yon, why TUP. Then the next part is, ano ba yung mga hugot mo sa experience mo na sinabi kanina? Okay, I remember at TUP, there is a project that tells the teachers as to do, interview with an artist. I remember I interviewed Ronald Ventura at Mega Mall, and he said, maybe my work is realism, surrealism, or maybe in abstract form. But only thing I know, my work is real. Yun yung sinabi ni Ronald nung time na magaling na talaga siya, but he's a sophomore in age. Okay, the third part is, this third part question is been having an idea with my friends also, like Roylan Kalayag, and pushed by Rafi Napay of these questions. Okay, their question is, paano naman, Rai, ngayon nalaman mo na yung trabaho mo ay pumalo na sa merkado? Ano naman ang masasabi mo nun? And how can you advise the young ones or the young artists like us and or all of the audience here? Yun lang po. Thank you.
Tanong ko pa, Ju. Hindi, sa akin, sa totoo lang, syempre tao lang tayo. Masaya yan kapag madaming naka-appreciate. Pero dapat, kapag artist ka, hanggat maaari hindi yan iniisip eh. Kasi dyan may term yan sa amin sa Bicol. Dyan yan mag-uumpisa matatalang ka eh. Ibig sabihin matatalang, dyan ka na mamamali. Ibig sabihin, dyan ka na malilis ng landas. Kapag pinasok mo yan, inisip mo. Parang ganito yan eh, parang tatanungin mo yung sarili mo, bakit ka ba nag-a-art? Ibig sabihin, kung halimbawa lang na walang sabihin natin, walang nakaka-appreciate niyan, walang nagpe-pray sa'yo, wala kang fans, wala lahat. Di ba? Wala lahat. Pero gusto mong mag-art. Kumbaga, walang incentives, wala lahat. Mag-a-art ka pa ba? Parang tanong lang yan sa sarili. Di ba nabanggit ko kanina? Sabi ko, the best way to know the truth is to know yourself. Kung kilala mo yung sarili mo, hindi ka dyan maliligaw eh. Kasi dyan karaniwan, yan nga, nakakalungkot nga eh. Parang dyan sila karamihan, dyan natatalang eh. Na ang gusto kasi nila, nag-art sila kasi parang ang iniisip na komportable. Once na naisip mo kasi yung komportable, yun, dyan na. Umpisa na yan eh. Hindi mo mapapansin ikaw na pala yung kinakain. Na dapat, ikaw yung nag-create, ikaw yung magkukontrol. Once na pumasok yung material na bagay, dyan yan mag-uumpisa. So, dapat ang pinaka-the best, kung kilala mo yung sarili mo, tsaka unang-una, kilalanin mo yung sarili mo para malaman mo yung totoo. Pangalawa, tanggalin mo sa sarili mo na ang art ay hanap buhay. Hindi yan hanap buhay. Ang art ay nagki-create ka nga eh. Baliktad kasi yung nangyayari. Nakikita ko, nalulungkot nga ako eh. Baliktad yung nangyayari. Kumbaga, pumapasok yung iba sa art kasi parang gusto nila yung art yung mag-sustain sa kanila. Mali yun eh. Maling-mali talaga. Dapat, artist ka, ikaw yung mag-sustain sa art. Dapat ganun. Hindi yung art yung mag-sustain sa'yo. Once na kasi naging komportable ka, diyan na yung pumapasok, di ba? Nakikita natin na gawa ng gawa, mga ganun, na parang ikaw na, nadidiktahan ka na. Ikaw na yung kinokontrol. Di mo napapansin, ikaw na yung nakokontrol. Kasi mas in-embrace mo yung comfort eh. Kasi darating naman yan eh, sooner or later eh. Kumbaga, ginagampanan mo talaga yung pagiging artist. May incentives yan, darating. May incentives yan. Ang the best dyan, kapag dumating yung panahon na yun, na may disiplina ka na nabuo sa sarili mo, ibig sabihin nakapag-put ka na ng foundation na hindi ka na kaya basta diktahan o impluensyahan. Yun, susunod naman yan.
Okay, on that note, let's give our panelists a hand.